And for Jacqueline, I want to turn to you in California, the Golden State. We've seen a spike. 55% of the cases reported there are Latinos and 45% of the deaths. Can you share a little bit of what you're seeing on the ground?
Yeah, you called it the Golden State, not feeling very golden these days, Dominica. The inequities that Sonia pointed out to have really put the Latino population at highest risk in the state of California. And it's not even throughout the state. I like to think of San Francisco and LA as emerald cities, right? And then you have the Valley, Central Valley, San Joaquin Valley, Inland Empire, the Imperial Valley. These are places that have long been forgotten in disinvestments for decades, if not centuries. And the people living in these regions have been the ones that have been most impacted. And yes, to quote your numbers, we're making closer now to 59% of all cases, yet we make 39% of the population. If you look at places like the San Joaquin Valley, the numbers are even higher and the death rates are higher, and they're higher among the younger population. So the 18 and 34-year-olds, as Sonia was mentioning, are the ones that are making up our essential work. And one thing that I want to clarify for the audience is that as a country, we've been talking about essential workers. Really what we value are the essential work. We have not valued the people making up those jobs. And in the state of California, where close to 2 million are undocumented, I want to bring that up. 80% of them make up jobs that are considered essential. And right now, we have not done right by them in providing them the resources, financial resources, the protections that they need to live. And it's an inhumane case for our state.
I want to come back to you, but I want to hear about what's happening in Colorado. So Alex and Beatriz, give us an update.
So I'm happy to start, Alex, but kind of what you were mentioning, institutional and systematic racism, weak safety nets, and the lack of engagement with our community are being really obvious. At a local level, we represent approximately 30% of the population, and 70% of the COVID cases are Latinos. The lack of leadership and, the lack of communication with our community, and, just really thinking that we're really progressive and that we have everything under control and never really dealing with these issues or even wanting to talk to them now is like surfacing, and we're realizing, it's time to really address a lot of these issues.
Thank you, Dominica. We started Voces Unidas de las Montañas as the first Latino created and Latino-led nonprofit in the region to address the long-standing inequities in our valleys. And it starts with, learning to share power and to create social capital within the Latino community. We represent 30% of all three counties of the region. There are 35,000 Latinas and Latinos in our region. And all that COVID did is just highlight the inequities that have existed in our communities for too long. They're systemic. They're systems that have intended and unintended consequences. And to the points that Beatriz is making, disproportionality means something else in communities like Garfield County, where 70% of all positive cases, 70% of all active positive cases are Latinos, where we only represent 30% of that population. So these are systemic failures. These are vacuums that have existed. And this is why we as organizations need to be able to be part of the solution. People of color who are being disproportionately impacted need to be at the table. And that's what Voces Unidas is all about. Giving people voice, creating social capital, and creating opportunities for people to lead in their own communities.